Mikhaila Peterson sat down recently with Iced Coffee Hour, and they talked about a plethora of different things. But the discussion and topic about her own personal faith in Jesus Christ and how that came to be came up. But there was something in there that she said that may be concerning. Now, in today's video, we're going to dive into this podcast and see some discussions she had about her personal faith, what brought her to Christ. And then we're going to also pull up a specific Bible verse that kind of highlights exactly what's being said here. Now, let's dive into the first clip where we see her talk about her desires starting to change.
It was probably harder to begin with because it's super exciting, right? Especially if you don't have a social media and then it starts growing, you're like, whoa, this is really cool. That novelty wore off. And then I'm probably kept in check by God mostly, not by like my own value of myself. Otherwise, I think it's probably impossible to keep it from going to your head. So I don't value, like compared to a number of years ago, I don't value the social media component as much as I value things that are actually happening in my own life. And I wouldn't necessarily attribute that to like choices I'm making necessarily. I would give credit to God for that.
How does God play into that exactly?
Just like changing what I'm attracted to. So I used to be attracted to making a lot of money. And that was, I think, partly because I grew up not having very much money, and partly because I was so sick that I was like, I can do this and I can prove myself. And making money shows people that you're valuable. And I think also being a girl, I was like, I don't know, attracted to that in a way that I probably shouldn't have been like attracted to it. And you know, people who are obsessed with money, you shouldn't really like be like that. And so I think I was kind of like that, but it felt okay. Like it felt like I was poor and I'm trying to do good things and I'm like being successful and that's a good thing. But then I was ending up not paying attention to like more real things in my life. And it's not like I wasn't paying attention to them, but I wasn't obsessed with those things like I was obsessed with the goal of like being successful. And then when I started, like honestly, when I started reading the Bible more and felt more of a relationship with God and Jesus, that changed my heart to not valuing the more like vain aspects of my life as much. So like social media, money, that kind of thing.
Now, as we can see here, she's talking about the things that she once valued. The things that she once valued, she does not seem to value anymore. And she says, the one person I'm trying to actually please is God. And that's what really keeps me in check, which is extremely encouraging to hear, because when they asked her about, where she was and how did she feel about the kind of blow up on social media and etc., at first she did admit it got to her head. But because she's been leaning on the Lord, it's been such a help to just say, those things I don't care about anymore, which kind of reflects what we see in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 8 to 11, where it says, for you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness, righteousness, and truth, finding out what is acceptable to the Lord, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. So she is no longer finding herself, and not necessarily bad things that she was finding herself in, but she does talk about how there were things that she found pleasure in, things that she found satisfaction in and delight in that were not from the Lord. But now it's seeming that as she is growing in her faith, those desires are now reflecting things that will honor the Lord. And then she goes on and talks about now how her transition to faith and how that came to be.
But I didn't pray. We didn't go to church. Like I went to church once with my grandma. Like, no. And my dad wasn't religious and my mom wasn't religious. But when she had cancer, she almost died from cancer in 2019. And it was like a crazy rare cancer that like nobody has. And there were like 18 case studies and everybody died. It was really awful. She had surgery and then the surgeon like nicked something and it wouldn't heal and she was dying and she wasn't religious at all. And then like one day she goes, I'm going to be better by our anniversary. My dad and my mom's anniversary. And we were like, okay, mom, you're on a lot of morphine. Like That'd be great. Um, and she goes to for surgery in the US and it didn't work. And she comes back to Canada. And on their anniversary, she just healed and nobody could understand why. And she was like, it was God, just like kind of out of the blue. And I was like, okay, that was strange. And I don't really know how to understand that. And she was just like, that was God. Like he spoke to me. He said he would do that. And it's been really since then that I've been like, oh, maybe these religious people aren't so crazy. Like, maybe there's more out there than what I was thinking before.
Now, here's my concern. This is the only thing that concerns me is she's talking about how she kind of grew up. Didn't grow up in a Christian home, didn't grow up reading the Bible. Really, this belief in God wasn't a thing. It was just her dad was more of like a psychological thing with God. But what happened and what radically kind of changed this in her life was her mom gets cancer, and it's a rare cancer. Well, the Lord does a supernatural work, and the Lord heals her mom. And her mom says, hey, I knew I was going to get healed. I told you I was going to get healed on Jordan and I's anniversary. And the Lord did do the work. He did heal me. And that is what caused Mikhaila to finally say, okay, maybe this whole God thing is not just made up. Maybe it's actually real. Now, guys, I'm encouraged and I'm thankful that by the Lord's sovereignty, he did a supernatural healing and healed her mom. But my concerns are, would the same results come if the mom didn't get healed? And a bigger concern is, if her mom, all of a sudden, this cancer that she did have comes back, what's going to be the result of Mikhaila's faith? Where is her faith? My hope and prayer that it is truly and genuinely in Christ. But sadly, we do see people, when things become real bad in their life, when darkness really kind of comes over their life, maybe it's a parent getting cancer and dying, maybe it's having multiple miscarriages, whatever it is, these things that happen in our life, all of a sudden we see people just kind of fall away from the faith, denounce Christianity, and turn away from it. Because their faith at the end of the day wasn't truly in Christ, but it was in something completely different. So my hope and prayer is that her faith is genuine and she continues to live her life for Christ no matter what happens in her life, that she would not lose that, and that her doing these things she's going to talk about next would just continue to grow in her life daily.
Do you even start by becoming religious? Do you start by reading the Bible?
I started by reading the Bible, reading the Gospels, and then wanting it. Like, I wanted it. I wasn't someone who was scoffing at it at that point. I, like, early on in my life, I was like, oh, Christians are like the homeschooled kids that think Harry Potter's evil. But I think I had so many hard things happen to me and like terrible things happen to me that I was like, if that were true, or if I believed that, like, I want that. I want that faith that my mom has, because like she started to believe in God and Jesus, her cancer healed, and then she became like a nicer, more like welcoming, more patient person. And I was like, that, if I had that faith in something higher, that I think would be beneficial for me. So I had to want it. I wanted it. And then I started reading the Bible, and it was really like a couple years later, that it just clicked, and I was like, okay, I get it. But I didn't get it for a long time. I was just reading the Bible. I tried to go to church a few times, but I was like, I don't really understand it.
The question is, how did you even start? Where did you start when it came to your belief, and how did that come about? And she said, I just started reading my Bible. And again, my mom getting healed, and then my mom kind of seeming to change after she's making this profession of faith in God. It really just kind of radically shook my own personal life, and I wanted that. I saw that it was good. And so I started fully seeking the Lord. And so that's encouraging. And we need to be praying for her. We need to be praying for Mikhaila that she would continue to seek the Lord diligently and earnestly, and pray that no matter the circumstances that may happen in her own life in the future, that her faith would be rooted in Christ and Him alone, and that she would find her ultimate hope, trust, and peace in Him. And maybe you're also kind of saying, listen, I've turned away from Christ because of hardships in my life. I would just encourage you, find yourself back seeking Christ. Find yourself back opening up the Word of the living God, and find hope and rest and comfort in Him and Him alone. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the BTteam Ministry YouTube channel, as well as leave a like and a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, you might like this one